the alley-oops at Keyshaw to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. Ready to talk about day 6 of training camp and more exciting things coming from Santa Clara. It is just non-stop excitement and news. The 49ers seem to always have news surrounding their football team. And we've been talking about the injury bug missing the 49ers through the early part of training camp. It seems to be kind of rearing its ugly head a little bit. So we'll get into some of the injuries that the 49ers may have going, in their direction, and then also talk about, what they've did at practice and how, some parts of the team are starting to accelerate, maybe a little rust being knocked off Brock Purdy. It's going to be a fun episode. I'm glad you're here with me. 49ers Cutback on Believe, and it kicks off in the morning. I'm sitting out at training camp watching. Practice is about to start. You got people stretching. Notification. Adam Schefter reports that the 49ers have signed former first-round pick Taco Charlton of used to be with the Dallas Cowboys, kind of been around the league a little bit now, the former Michigan Wolverine. So the 49ers bring in Taco, and he's going to be coming in and playing defensive end, and he was at practice today. If you follow 49ers Cutback on social media, you saw Taco Charlton in the first look in his uniform. He was out there wearing number 77, which was weird. I was like, hey, that's not Bubba Paris. We haven't seen a lot of 77s for the San Francisco 49ers through the years, but I thought Taco Charlton, the first look at him, he looked like he was in good shape. His arms are definitely long. Called it longs. Yeah, his arms are definitely long. He looked really good as far as physique. I think, him getting acclimated to the defense is going to be a different story, but I watched him, and I watched him pretty intently to see how Taco Charlton was going to look. He was getting reps with the third-team defensive ends and defensive line, and I thought he looked pretty good. His get-off was a little bit slower than I would like, but that was something Chris Kasarik was already pushing him on. He was already going through the work, and he even between group sessions, so the defensive line worked with the bags with the coaches, including Chris Kasarik, and Daryl Tapp. And then Daryl Tapp, between sessions, worked more with Taco Charlton. They were working on his hand work, his hand placement. It was really good work. So Taco was in there putting in that extra work, and I think that's really good news for the 49ers because the 49ers have a couple of guys missing at the defensive end position. Both Austin Bryant and Robert Beal were not practicing. So the 49ers needed to add defensive end depth. Because they did add Taco Charlton, they waived safety Avery Young from Rutgers. The 49ers had to make a move in the secondary to be able to bring on Taco. So they're not moving on from Austin Bryant or Robert Beal or anything like that. And we don't know how significant their injuries are, but it looks like the 49ers have some defensive line injuries. Not just Robert Beal Jr. and Austin Bryant, but also Kalia Davis that we talked about yesterday hasn't been at practice. So 49ers, it usually happens this way. Unfortunately, it attacks one part of your team, and it seems to be attacking the 49ers defensive line. So they bring in Taco Charlton, and so he'll be out there competing and trying to make a name for himself to see if he can stick with the 49ers and potentially make the 49ers 53-man roster. I think that would be a lot of fun to see if he could do it, right? And what is going on, everyone in chat? People are asking about Beal, and I haven't really heard anything. I do know he was not in pads and on the sidelines. So we'll see. We'll see where he's at. And if he, hopefully is able to get there. But usually in training camp, you just don't get no injury updates until you get Kyle Shanahan to the press conferences. So until Kyle is actually going to be speaking to the media, we're probably not going to know anything about these injuries. But Beal Jr. was in street clothes on the sideline. And so he's going to have to work his way back. With Bryant, I don't know. So we don't really have any information, just that the 49ers felt it was necessary to increase their rotation by bringing in Taco Charlton. And what's up, Mosquito Killer? How's it going? Glad you came in here live, and glad Donald and Freddie and Josh and everybody's in chat. I really appreciate you all coming through. What's up, David and CJ? You guys are in here as well. Really appreciate all the support. 11 subscribers away from 4K on YouTube. So thanks everyone so much for that comes through and listens to 49ers Cutback on Believe. And with that, opportunity has come. Of course, Nick Bosa doesn't have, the contract. They haven't really worked it out. John Lynch was, kind of keeping it all close to the vest. He says he wants to respect the wishes of the agent and Nick Bosa about the contract negotiation details, and that's fine. But with that comes a lot of opportunities for Clelin Ferrell and for Drake Jackson. And I think it's been well documented how much people have been fans of Drake Jackson and how he's looked, whether that was covering Elijah Mitchell down the field on a route down the field, down the sideline, or if that was just the way that I saw him yesterday in one-on-ones working on an up-the-field speed rush, with a spin to the inside. I thought he looked really good. He looked really quick, and he's looked pretty good in team. I think there's been a couple opportunities where he probably would have had a sack or two, and so I think everyone's kind of on the right track with Drake Jackson. They think, hey, he's going, but I think Clelin Ferrell's been kind of flying under the radar because Ferrell fits what the 49ers really want to do. He's good against the run, but he showed more pass rush ability than I think a lot of people thought. During one-on-ones, I seen him giving Trent Williams some fits, and it's not easy to make Trent feel uncomfortable. And I thought Ferrell did that really good with some heavy hands, some really good placement, and then just using his leverage. And so anytime you can have that sort of success against a player like Trent Williams, of course, every dog has his day, but I just thought overall Clelin Ferrell's been consistent. And so as long as he continues down that path, I like the 49ers rotation with Ferrell coming in potentially in that second group as long as Drake keeps ascending. And I think that's really good for the defensive line. I just wish that they didn't have an Austin Bryant injury, and I wish we could see what Robert Beal Jr. looked like because I just so excited about that speed rush element off the edge, and we just didn't really get to see it. He was kind of just going through basic individual drills. We haven't really got to see him much in team settings, and especially didn't get to see him in pads have any sort of real reps against guys like Trent Williams or Jalen Moore. We just haven't saw it because Beal hasn't been healthy. So that's something I definitely want to see. So there's question marks right now around defensive end, from Bosa being out, just to the injuries to Bryant and Beal, who are very similar in stature and the way that they play, that speed element around the outside. So hopefully they're going to figure this thing out here pretty soon because I do want to see them figure it out. And Freddie has a question. He says, could Mason take over as running back too? As much as I like Jordan Mason, and I've heard a lot of really good reports, I hear the oohs and ahs in the crowd, and I see it as well. The physicality, pretty good vision. I mean, he looks good. He's even running pretty good routes this year. And I knew that was something he had a capability to do. It's just something that he hadn't been asked to do in San Francisco yet. But I think Elijah Mitchell has looked better than Jordan Mason. And maybe, some would say it's the opposite. But I think Elijah Mitchell looks like the complete package, whether that's catching the ball in the backfield, the vision on the inside. I mean, he had a literally run today through the middle of the field. He got through a nice hole, pressed up to where the linebackers were, and then made a jump cut that got him into the open field. And it looked like the Elijah Mitchell that we all like. So I think that Jordan Mason has definitely ascended from last year. I just don't think he's overtaking Elijah Mitchell right now. If Mitchell gets hurt, Jordan Mason, you could feel very comfortable with him as a running back too. But I think the 49ers just have an absolute three-headed monster. And you can't sleep on TDP either. TDP is running physical. He's running with great patience and vision. And he was not wanting to be stopped today. He was running over all challengers. It was contact. He was not afraid of it. TDP had another one where he broke. Probably would have ended up getting like 12 to 15 yards. Of course, he made that extra, guy potentially miss and break out. But those four guys have looked fantastic recently. So even though Jordan Mason is trending in the right direction, he's trending on the way up, I still think Elijah Mitchell is trending that way as well. So I think that we're hopeful that the running back room is going to continue this way. Speaking of running backs, Christian McCaffrey is special. Just everything he does, I don't think it's something that we have to harp on from practice because he's just, so good on those reps. But he had one play where he came running through an open hole, and Dre Greenlaw came from the side and absolutely obliterated him. And it was one of those plays where you could tell tempers got going a little bit. It never got out of hand. Cooler heads prevailed. But Christian McCaffrey stayed down for a second, and then he got up and did his traditional run. Even after the contact, you get that extra 10 to 15 yards. But it was an impact hit. Dre Greenlaw is exactly what they say. The guy is like Mike Tyson, when he's getting that hit. CJ says, would you consider trading Bosa for a tackle? No, I wouldn't. So I'm not about that at all. I wouldn't trade Bosa for a tackle. I think the 49ers can get a tackle next year in the first round. This is the first time they'll have first round picks, and they can take advantage of getting a tackle high in the draft. Jerry says 95.7 the game said that it was a great Purdy day. Is that true? So let's talk a little bit about the quarterback position. It's amazing, right? We've made it over 10 minutes into the show, and we haven't really talked quarterbacks. Welcome to 49ers Cutback, where the focus isn't always on quarterbacks, even though quarterbacks are a big part of it. So, yeah, Brock Purdy had a good day today. I think the easiest way to say it was he looked comfortable. He looked confident. And I thought this was probably the best performance we've got from Brock Purdy so far in training camp. So that's good news. So we've seen the highlights. He's made some good throws. Yesterday, there was a really spectacular throw to Christian McCaffrey. Today, he was in rhythm, hitting the intermediate passes. He was checking down when he was supposed to, hitting screen passes. I thought overall he looked good. He did have one mistake where he escaped the pocket. He was getting pressure. He escaped the pocket to the right. He saw George Kittle flashing across the middle of the field, and he tried to throw back across his body, and it was nearly intercepted. I think that's a mistake, but I think every quarterback and coach understands that's a mistake. You never throw back across the field. That just puts the ball in harm's way. Brock knew right away he had made a mistake. The ball should have been intercepted. It wasn't. But those are the kinds of mistakes that you can fix, and I think it's good that he's doing it. He's taking some chances, and that's one of the things Kyle Shanahan tells all these quarterbacks. Yeah, he wants them to go strategically through their reads, 1, 2, 3, and go with the progression. But also he wants them to take some chances and see what throws they can get away with, because this is the time to figure it out. Not when you're in the regular season. So he can test what his capabilities are. Now he knows I can't make that throw. And in fact, I guarantee when they get into the film room, it's going to start with Brian Griese and it's going to end with Kyle Shanahan with never do that again. But he had a really good red zone period. He was throwing strikes. He hit Jawan Jennings in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. It was a really great play. They hit Deebo Samuel for a touchdown. That was really nice as well. Deebo went low and got the football. So, yeah, it was a good day for Brock Purdy. He had 19 reps overall. Yesterday was 27, so 8 fewer reps. But he was 8 of 10. So they didn't do as many 11-on-11 situations today at practice, but I thought he looked pretty good. And then I thought Trey Lance continued, his upward ascension. I thought it was consistent. The only problem was the short passes kind of reared its ugly head again. And it started on his very first throw. He had George Kittle wide open in the flat, and he just threw it way too far outside. It was not a good throw. But we did see him working with Christian McCaffrey, with Brandon Aiyuk. He had some really good timing on his throws, good precision, especially anything that gets, close to 10 yards. I feel like that's where Trey Lance is really excelling. But he ran the offense good on the handoffs, rolling out. A couple times he escaped. So I think Trey is still going in the right direction. With Sam Darnold, this was Sam Darnold's worst practice that I've seen. He just wasn't getting the opportunities, was getting the pocket collapsed on him pretty consistently, and so he wasn't able to make some of the throws. And then for the first time, we've seen him short hopping receivers and not being able to get the ball where it's supposed to be. He has normally been the model of consistency. That's what we've been talking about with Sam Darnold. And today was a day that he struggled. So you can see by matchup, by personnel, there are times when each one of these quarterbacks is going to somewhat struggle. And today was Darnold's day. And then just throwing it out there, Brandon Allen got 9 reps. So Darnold got 11. Brandon Allen got 9 reps, and he was 5 for 5 passing. At the one-on-ones, he handles one-on-ones, and today was running backs versus linebackers, tight ends versus safeties. Brandon Allen threw all of those footballs, sometimes very accurately, and then sometimes he missed. And the reason I bring that up is Cameron Latu is struggling a little bit right now to catch the football consistently. He had a big drop in the red zone. He's had a couple of other ones as well. But he had an opportunity, and one-on-ones he won once big, and then he had another one where it should have been a touchdown on one-on-ones. It was a really nice move when he got to the top of his route and stacked it. He gave a little bit extra, and he created separation from the safety, and it should have been a touchdown, but he just absolutely was throwing a terrible pass by Brandon Allen. And when I say terrible, Latu's looking to the inside, and it was thrown outside to the sideline and out of bounds. So it wasn't the best moment, but overall, Brandon Allen has consistently been able to play pretty good, which I'm sure the 49ers are happy about, even though, John Lynch did say in his presser they couldn't keep 4 quarterbacks on the active roster. They could potentially keep 4 in the room, which means one of them is probably going to be on the practice squad. I just don't know if that guy's going to be Brandon Allen because let's be honest. Brandon Allen, he's probably going to get picked up. He's not a bad player at all. But I think that's something that, we'll monitor and just kind of see where they're going. So, yeah, I thought that, overall it was a good day for the quarterbacks again. I mean, Sam maybe struggled a little bit, but other than that, it was good. Jelly says, Ant, how about our Knoll at running back? So, Kalen Layburn, he was really showing out early. He hasn't got as many reps recently. The one thing that's still the drawback for Layburn is the vision. So if he gets a hole and he sees it, he's dynamic going through it. You can see the speed, the way he changes direction. It's all there. He catching the football, the backfield. I mean, he's dangerous going against linebackers in the open field. The problem is sometimes he will miss the open hole and try to bounce. And I think that is a concern with a lot of young running backs, and that's something they're working on him with right now is, hey, knowing when to get vertical. And sometimes you got to press the line of scrimmage, and yeah, the play's supposed to go right, but the opening's going to come to the left. And that's a lot of feel. It's a lot of vision. And I think right now Layburn is learning that, but you can see the explosiveness as an athlete. I think right now he's the 5th running back behind TDP, but we'll see what he does when he gets into preseason. You can make a name for yourself there. If he doesn't show up and show out in preseason, he'll probably be on the 49ers practice squad from what I've seen in training camp. If he shows up and shows out, he'll probably be on someone else's practice squad because he's that good of a football player. JL says, Ant, who had the million sacks that our defense had today? It was kind of spread around. I mean, it wasn't a million sacks. The pocket was definitely collapsing here and there. They were working on blitz packages from Steve Wilkes. He was bringing Hufanga. He was bringing Isaiah Oliver. He was bringing inside linebackers. And sometimes the 49ers were defeating that blitz with, great hot reads. And that's part of the reason that quarterbacks were checking down. So if you hear about quarterbacks throwing short or checking down, it was because that was the hot. That's what they're supposed to do. So you had the defense working on blitzing and the coverage behind that, and the 49ers going ahead and throwing where that blitz comes from. And that's why there was some big plays in the intermediate and short game that developed into, big time plays. So to me, I thought that overall both the offense and defense was executing what they wanted. And it's one of those things they always say, you live by the blitz, you die by the blitz. And Wilkes is finding out what his players can do, and Kyle Shanahan's finding out exactly not only how his offensive line is going to respond and pick up blitzes or his running backs that are handling protection, but also if his quarterback can navigate what he sees and get rid of the football when he's supposed to. We've had so many situations in the 49ers past where the quarterback didn't recognize the read or wasn't able to get rid of the football, and then you got a sack. So Yeah, was there pressure? Yes. It's hard to tell sometimes if it's going to be a sack or if it's not, depending on, right now they can't touch the quarterback. So sometimes even if someone reaches out and touches a quarterback, but he wouldn't have got a sack, people will still call it a sack. So I don't really put a whole lot of, you know, a whole lot of anything behind it. I mean, I think it's, sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. Freddie says, any Jalen Moore injury update? No injury update from Jalen Moore. It was a scary moment as he went down. He did get up and walk about 25, 30 yards very gingerly. I felt like he was picked up steam a little bit before he got on the cart. So unfortunately, Jalen Moore, we're going to have to wait and find out what his injury is. I thought he was having a really good training camp, and I was excited about him and potentially what he could, be for the 49ers. He was for sure ahead of Matt Pryor right now. He really was the, one of the better linemen on the 49ers team. So hoping for nothing serious, at least nothing that would keep him out for the regular season, because I think the 49ers really would love to have him out there the way that he's been playing right now. So I like it. And Donald says Kyle actually put his offensive players in the fire to strengthen them. Absolutely. Absolutely he does. They put him in tough situations, and that's how it is, right? You press coal and you make a diamond. And I think that's what he's trying to do, is make sure he gets these guys in the right situations where they can be successful. And they have to be able to navigate, what they see on the field. And I think that the 49ers are doing a good job with that, especially Kyle Shanahan, of making sure. Another notable thing that I wanted to bring up was just Brandon Aiyuk's continued onslaught. And I seen Freddie McDre ask who's going to have more yards, Brandon Aiyuk or Deebo Samuel. And the way Aiyuk is playing right now, you can't guard him with one guy. I mean, you can't. He's just ridiculous. Anything that gets thrown his way, he's catching it. It's like Clifford Franklin from The Replacements. The ball is like a one-man cold to Brandon Aiyuk. He's the only one catching it. He's the only one coming down with it. The dude is so good. And I think right now he looks the part. His body is different than we've ever seen it. Rookie year, he had the skinnier legs. Now he is just built for success. He gets in and out of his breaks. I mean, he does it against everybody. Every single corner he goes against, every safety, that he has to route at the top, he just handles it. And if he's getting physical with someone, he's able to get separation and get the ball, the tough hands, strong hands to bring the ball down. Brandon Aiyuk's going to be a problem. But here it is. Deebo Samuel is having the best training camp I've seen him have. He's catching everything. He's going down low for the football. He's running really good crisp routes, especially for Deebo Samuel, that are creating separation. He's been executing the deep cuts really good. And then, he was running his normal crossing patterns. And today, Danny Gray went flying up the field. And I was sitting there and I go, there it is. And I was expecting him to just, Brock Purdy to let it fly to Danny Gray, because Gray he blew by the safety. It was a touchdown. But he went to Deebo Samuel underneath, which I'm sure is the first read, because the safety got caught in no man's land. And Deebo had a nice play. So I think Deebo and Brandon Aiyuk are both going to have success. I think who has the most yards is going to be dependent on, number one, how defenses look to play them. Because if your plan on that day is to take away Brandon Aiyuk and you double him, Deebo, McCaffrey, and Kittle are going to kill you. And if it's, you're going to go ahead and take away Deebo and all the things he does, well, then, Brandon Aiyuk's going to kill you. And if for some way you figure out how to take both of them out, well, McCaffrey, George Kittle, and Jawan Jennings are going to kill you. It's pick your poison. And I think the 49ers are feeling really comfortable, especially with how good Aiyuk has looked. It's amazing how much better he gets every single practice. Thank you so much, David. David Morazzo says, love the content, new subscriber. Really appreciate you coming through. And I love having new people around. So leave your takes. Let us know how you're feeling, and really appreciate you coming on by to 49ers Cutback on Believe. And let's talk a little bit Nick Zakelj, because we know Nick Zakelj is one of my favorite offensive linemen. And last year, he was the last offensive lineman on the 53-man roster. And this year, he's looking better. He's bigger. He's more physical. He looks more fluid in his athletic ability. he struggled early on. I could tell his strength. I mean, Kinlaw, he's been going against Kinlaw in that second unit, and Kinlaw was getting the best of him. And I thought that Zakelj bounced back. But one thing interesting and why it was noteworthy was he was logging center snaps. And I was watching him, whether the quarterback was under center or was in the shotgun, he was doing a really good job. And him and Joey Fisher were playing together with Jason Poe at right guard. And I thought that at times it looked really good on that, third unit. And so the 49ers, with a young guy like Nick Zakelj, have some flexibility. We seen Feliciano do it yesterday. Feliciano, I mean, the guy is just stout and solid. But we're seeing this 49ers offensive line take shape. Jake Brendel did better in one-on-ones today than he did yesterday. I thought Jalen Moore looked good again. Trent Williams looked like Trent Williams. Colton McKivitz is still doing his thing. So I've been excited about the offensive line, but I've been waiting for some of the younger guys to kind of take a step forward, whether that was Jason Poe or Nick Zakelj or Joey Fisher, Il Manning. I wanted to see how these guys perform, and I felt like Fisher had a pretty good day, and Zakelj logging those snaps at center, I thought he looked good. So it's something to monitor. We've been talking about, one of these guys is going to be able to make the team potentially from the interior offensive line, not named Feliciano, because Feliciano's for sure going to make it. And Zakelj having the ability to play center and guard, I think is something the 49ers would like, not to mention in a pinch, an emergency situation. Zakelj played tackle his entire career, so he could step in as well. He played all that at college, so he could step in and be just fine. So I like the 49ers offensive line and the way that it's been looking. And I think they all are feeling very comfortable with it as well. Now, I talked a little bit about Cameron Law too, as far as, getting open, but maybe having some pass catching struggles. I don't know if it's focus or what it is exactly, but he needs to get that ball put away. But I also made an effort to watch him block. And I thought he had a pretty good day blocking, both him and Braden Willis. I thought, they understood what they were supposed to do. They were lining up in the right spots. And that was a big question mark for Cameron Latu. He has the size, he has the strength to be an inline blocker. And we saw it some in practice today. So I thought that was a positive move in the right direction. We even saw the 49ers in first team take Braden Willis in place of George Kittle, put him in motion as a move tight end, and have him help Trent Williams on the edge and try to get a push there off the edge and try to run to the left. It didn't work out. Christian McCaffrey was stopped for little to no gain. But I thought that was a signal how they feel about Braden Willis's potential to be a help block tight end, in this case, a move tight end. So to me, it's been good news for the 49ers young tight ends. And Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelley haven't exactly run away with it. I think Warner has outplayed Dwelley right now. Warner's still a very significant blocker. And I think that overall in the passing game, Warner's probably looked better than I've seen him. He could have had a couple of catches if he didn't have some bad throws. So the young guys have to still catch Charlie Warner, but I think they are acclimating to the 49ers offense and then being able to execute, the things that they're asked to execute. So a good day for the tight ends. Another really good day for Danny Gray as he continues to impress with his speed. There was 3 or 4 occasions today where he got behind the defense and was open. And I think that, of course, it may not be a part of the game plan or the practice plan the 49ers are trying to institute, but at some point, they're going to see that on film, and you're going to see some of those shots. You're going to get the play action. You're going to get Danny Gray screaming down the field, and they're going to have that deep crosser for Deebo Samuel. Safety's going to jump it, and Danny Gray's going to catch a touchdown. So I like Danny Gray right now. I like he's been able to run all the routes, whether that's short, intermediate, or long. To me, he looks fast. He looks crisp. He's been standing out to me in a player that's not one of the top 4 guys, right? Because Jennings, Deebo, Brandon Aiyuk, they're at a different level. Ray's looks solid, and I think Danny Gray has been the best one after that, even though Chris Conley has been coming on and Ronnie Bell had a really good practice yesterday. So there definitely still is a competition. This thing's going to play out. Conley's had a lot of touchdowns for the 49ers, and he's a nice big target for these quarterbacks. So to me, there's still a lot of a tread on the tires for this figuring out who's going to be the wide receivers. But I think it's going to be, really fun. let's see what we got here in the comment section. JL, he says, Ant, thoughts on our DN situation? I think right now, early thoughts are Greg Jackson is going to be the defensive end opposite of Nick Bosa to start. I think he showed enough as far as, in the run, setting the edge. I think he's done a pretty good job. I think that Cleveland Farrell is really close to him. I think both of them look really good. So I know once Bosa's back, I'm comfortable with those three guys as starting caliber players. Farrell's hand technique and use of leverage has been better than I anticipated. And so I do think he's a valuable member of this rotation. I think he's actually going to make more of an impact, than most believe he will. As far as the rest of it, I'm a little concerned with, Bryant and Beal Jr. being out because that's your speed element. You're going to get a lot of effort from Kerry Hyder. You're going to get a lot of effort from the, the guys that are behind. And we'll see what happens with Taco Charlton. But, I think the 49ers were really looking for that speed element. And all those guys are kind of built in more of the Drake Jackson mold. And I think that's kind of the direction they want to go. And with those guys being out, I think they're thinking they're going to be able to have less pockets collapse, even though the interior defensive line, can definitely collapse a pocket. So I like those top three guys. I like Kerry Hyder overall because he's just such a technician. But I would like it more if we had Austin Bryant involved and Robert Beal involved, so we could get a really good idea, of how this D-line looks. But overall, it's pretty fun. Let's see. David says, Ant, can Deshaun Jameson make the 53? He can. I think he can, David, because when it comes to Jameson, he's got the athletic ability. I watch him going through his drills, and he's definitely got a good read on what receivers are trying to do to him. So one of the drills they were running today was the offensive player was running, and he would kind of slow up or sink his hips and try to get the defensive player to commit, whether that was to break on the football and try to drive on it, or if that was to get him to flip his hips and turn the other way. They were trying to catch you in that, do I go forward or do I go back? And I thought Jameson was doing really good with that. And when it was plays, a lot of guys like Ambry Thomas were so afraid to give up their cushion because then they didn't want to get beat deep. But then when the guy broke off underneath, they were having to drive and really run a long ways. And there was a lot of distance between them and the offensive player. And I thought that Jameson didn't have that. He wasn't worried about giving up his cushion. And he had a really good feel of, hey, when I need to roll over, open my hips and go, and when he needed to drive on the football. So I think Jameson's in the mix. I just don't know for sure if he's going to be able to make it. And Freddie says Tay Martin making progress. Yeah, Tay Martin has been getting more involved in the offense, and I think that's good news. He's been catching some footballs. He definitely gives everything he's got in special teams, work. He's been a gunner. He's been working out over there. So, yeah, he has made progress. I think one of the question marks for Tay Martin is, can he overtake the guys in front of him? I think Tay Martin and Ronnie Bell are really close as far as what they've showed so far at practice. But I think that Danny Gray and Chris Conley are ahead of both of them. So if they're going to be able to jump those two guys, they're going to have to make some moves. And I felt like Ronnie Bell had a really good practice yesterday. Today, it was just average. But I thought Tay Martin showed out on a couple of plays today. So those guys are kind of in battles. And I think it's going to play out during the preseason when we get to see not only them take reps at wide receiver, but also take reps on special teams. I think special teams is going to be one of those areas, we could see these guys potentially have some success. And what's up, John? How's it going? He says, do you think Taco Charlton can be more than just a camp body? I say, why not? I mean, Taco Charlton's got the build. He's got the long arms. He was putting in work today. So, I mean, yes, I always think that somebody has the opportunity, especially when you play for Chris Kasarik and when you play for the San Francisco 49ers, because it's a meritocracy. He doesn't, Kyle Shanahan, Chris Kasarik, they don't care what your name is. They don't care where you were drafted. What they care about is how you produce on the football field. And I think that when it comes to Taco Charlton, he's got first-round ability, and the 49ers love reclamation projects. So we'll see how much of a opportunity Charlton gets. But, I mean, right now, that without Bryant and without Robert Beal Jr., you got to think he's going to get an opportunity. So let's see how he kind of gets comfortable being at 49ers practice, their scheme, their wide nine, how he feels about it. But it could open the door, and we'll see. He was a very talented player when he played at Michigan, and let's see if that can transfer over. And Freddie says, has defensive end become the biggest weakness? I don't think it's become the biggest weakness because you still have Nick Bosa and you still have Drake Jackson. And I think Cleveland Farrell's a solid 3. And we know Kerry Hyder can produce. And if he's your 4th defensive end, you're still feeling comfortable. I think on the back end, you're a little more concerned. But guys like Alex Barrett have been getting good reps. So when you have a coach like Chris Kasarik and Daryl Tapp as well, I mean, they just work these guys so solid. So I think that overall they're feeling pretty comfortable, with where they're at with the defensive end position. I think they just brought in Charlton. They need someone to get those reps so that way they don't have to do what they did yesterday and play Kinlaw at right defensive end in some of the situations. Freddie says, any news on rookie linebackers? So I've watched the rookie linebackers pretty consistently, and I'll kind of throw McCrary Ball in there. So we'll just talk about McCrary Ball, D. Winters, and Jalen Graham. Graham has been looking better in coverage over the last 2 days during one-on-ones. Of course, he gets cooked just like everybody else. And if he goes against Christian McCaffrey, it doesn't matter what linebacker you are, you're smoked. Bobby Wagner's already having nightmares about Christian McCaffrey. He's just that dangerous in the open spaces. But I think that overall, my favorite as far as footwork goes from the position is D. Winters. D. Winters has been very technical with his footwork. He's very explosive. I think overall, as far as the instincts right now, I believe Jalen Graham's a little bit ahead of D. Winters in that category. But I think that once it clicks for Winters' skill set is going to help him a lot. So I think I want to see what happens. This is the time both of them are going to excel now that we have pads on. And there was one play today where Kalen Layburn came running through the hole, and he thought he was going to jump cut to an opening, and both D. Winters and Jalen Graham met him in the hole. It was like, not today. It was really good. So I like their development overall. McCrary Ball has looked exciting. So I think he's still in the mix, but they haven't been able to overtake the 49ers starting 3, which includes Oren Burks. But also they haven't been able to overtake DFF yet. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles is that next guy up, that 4th linebacker as of right now on the depth chart. But I think that can slowly change, especially once we get to the Raiders practices and the 49ers get some film of these players playing against another team. John says, without Bryant Beal, what do you mean by that? Are they injured? Yeah, both guys haven't been practicing. You can add Kalia Davis to that list as well. Kalia Davis has missed 3 practices that I know of. Bryant and Bill have missed a couple of practices. Bill was in street clothes today. So, yeah, both of them haven't been working in, so the 49ers had to go out and get Taco Charlton. So I think this move was to make sure they had enough talent on the roster and not so much to go get a guy they feel, this isn't like something that you're looking at and be like, oh, Drake wasn't getting it done, or Cleveland Farrell wasn't getting it done. I think they just, we needed a guy. Taco Charlton's an experienced guy. He's got a lot of talent. Let's see what he's got, and let's work him out. So overall, I think that it was a solid move, and the 49ers have had some really good practices, and overall, that's what you're expecting right now in right now in training camp, preparing for the regular season. So 49ers on the right track, and we'll see how it plays out at defensive end. It's always a little nerve-wracking, right? We're hoping that it's going to go well, but you just don't know about injuries. And Freddie says, I'm worried about Burks being hurt and creating weakness in special teams. Yeah, I mean, he's a great special teams player. He was dealing with a little bit of an injury, but don't worry. They have talented guys to play special teams, and those young linebackers are part of the reason. Guys like, D. Winters, Jalen Graham, and McCrary Ball all look really good in their special teams work that we've been seeing at practice, so they'll be helping as well. So I do think Burks' role on special teams is diminished by playing and starting at Sandbacker, but it's not completely void. They're not going to completely take him out because with so many teams playing sub packages, at most he'll play 25 to 30% of the snaps. That's still plenty for him to be able to play the starting linebacker for the 49ers. So to me, I'm not really concerned about it overall. But I mean, that is something you got to take into account, right? When you're talking about who's going to start. Of course, you put your best starting 11 on both sides of the ball out there, and you let it all play out. So if you have to add somebody to play special teams, you'll be okay. They have good ones, including they could always keep DFF around, or they could keep, somebody else like Curtis Robinson around as well. And I'm glad Freddie McDre brought this up. He says, is the hype on Moody real? It should be real. The dude hit a 60-yard field goal today, and it didn't look like it was even that hard to do. He's got one heck of a leg. He did have a miss of 43 yards, but he hit 5 of 6. He's got the leg to help the 49ers be able to get points from further away. That was one of the drawbacks from having Robbie Gould. Yeah, he was consistent every single day. He could make it through, but his length was starting to slow. When he first came to the 49ers, hey, it was probably about 55 yards was his range, but now we were getting 50, 45 to 50 yards was kind of his top end. So I think even though he had the great consistency, he somewhat lacked that length. So Kyle Shanahan had a decision to make. He could go for it, which Kyle doesn't really like to do, and I'm sure a lot of 49er fans wish he would, or he could punt, try to pin them back, and then play good defense. And that's a lot of times what he decided to do. But now he doesn't have to worry about that. 55 to 60 yards, you have a kicker that can do that. So it extends point opportunities for the 49ers. And I think that's what they were looking for when they went with the younger leg and Jake Moody. They believe he's a once-in-a-lifetime talent. And I think so far he's looked the part. And honestly, the 49ers have two guys now because Zane Gonzalez has looked pretty good too. And I think teams around the league are going to come calling for Gonzalez as well because he's looked very consistent. He's got enough leg to hit from deep. The 49ers are in a good situation on special teams overall, from their kicker to their long snapper to their punter. Wisnowski was punting great today. Just to how these guys are playing on teams, it looks really good. So very excited about the direction of the 49ers offensively, defensively, and special teams. And I think everyone can get excited about the 49ers team overall. I'd like to thank everyone for coming through and joining me on the 49ers Cutback on Believe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, stay safe and remember the right way is always the 49ers.